You just hit play to a TechVibe Deep Dive, exploring data centers and their increasing demand for energy. I'm your host, Jonathan Kirsting with the Pittsburgh Technology Council and TechVibe Radio, and we are partnering with Comcast Business to bring you a front row seat to the innovations driving resiliency, efficiency, and sustainability across this industry. So what if Pittsburgh and West Virginia became the next epicenter of the data center boom and the power that's revolutionizing it? As tech companies race to meet skyrocketing demand for computing power, energy supply has become the critical bottleneck right now. And this episode is going to dive into how Pittsburgh's access to energy, available land, and regulatory foresight could put the region in a pole position to attract data center development and the massive economic growth that comes with it. Keep on listening, because today I am welcoming Moore Capito from Babst Calland so you can understand why data centers are triggering a modern day energy gold rush and what it means for our local economies. If you keep on listening, you're going to learn how regulatory reform, energy diversity, and innovation are going to dictate which regions win or lose in this race. And of course, you're going to discover why Pittsburgh and West Virginia are uniquely poised to meet this moment and what's at stake if we don't act fast. So keep on listening right now to hear how energy, innovation, and infrastructure are converging to reshape our region's economic future before this window of opportunity closes. Let's jump into my conversation I had with Moore right now.
So it's been interesting to watch the recent evolution of data center development, particularly as it grows globally very rapidly. And data centers are really nothing new. They've been around for a long time. Some of us probably remember those rooms that had the fancy sprinkler systems back in the day in our offices. And those were serving as what are now our data centers. And
Exactly.
But with the increased need and demand on computing, obviously the term data center has become a household term.
Yeah.
And I was having a discussion a while back, and I liken it to, it's like this modern day gold rush. We're seeing developers and energy companies and utility companies and tech companies rushing to find places to develop these data centers. And obviously all of that goes back to, and sometimes when I speak on this, I ask the crowd, I say, is there anybody in here that thinks that they're off the grid? And I've yet to find a crowd where any one person is off the grid. And so we all really rely so heavily to some degree on computing power. And that power, that need, that requirement that we have in our everyday lives, and then combining with what businesses need every single day, is creating an intense and a rapid need for expansion. So with that sort of backdrop, you had mentioned the projected 160% increase, into 2030. I saw an interesting statistic that really was eye-popping, in that the city of New York, and I don't remember the exact number, but the city of New York, I believe, is somewhere roughly between 5.5 gigawatts demand yearly. That's what it takes to power the city of New York. And in 2023, over or close to that number, 5.5 gigawatts of newly subscribed power demand was brought online due to data centers alone.
Wow.
So that gives you an idea of the scale that is required here.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. And generally speaking, we see on the news, whether it's on the Weather Channel or whether we're watching the evening news, that our existing infrastructure, our existing grids are being stressed pretty good. And we've seen grayouts and blackouts in different parts of the country. And that is with the current baseload demand that we're talking about. And I think that's what we'll talk about today, is how do we get there? And there's no question that of all of the obstacles, land, water, proximity, all of these things, regulatory, the number one issue, without question, is being able to provide the electricity.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And as you bring those numbers up, just the amount that's coming on, it's just, that's why with Tech Council, we were really stoked when we were talking to Michael Elias from TD Cowen, when you're looking at being able to get data centers online, despite all these energy obstacles. That Pittsburgh is one of the number one places for speed to market because of our access to power and the ability to potentially produce more power here, and then also have the space if we wanted to build more data centers and or even hyperscale size data centers and so forth. Pittsburgh and our region is in a very unique position now as this gold rush kind of happens.
Yeah, no question. And of course, I'm from West Virginia, and West Virginia and Western Pennsylvania are potentially very poised to benefit from this expansion, particularly because we're seeing a shift, as I referred to. You have your legacy utility infrastructure in place that's trying its best to keep up with the market demands, and then the increased market demands layering on top this new sort of expansion or exponential growth in data center needs. But we're starting to see that companies are really taking this into their own hands. And we saw that with Microsoft's deal in 3 Mile Island. We saw that with AWS's deal in Susquehanna. What we're seeing is that private companies, to the extent that they're permitted, and we're still watching how this goes, that private companies are starting to take matters into their own hands and try to find ways that they can provide their own power without relying on the legacy grid.
Yeah. And that was the most eye-opening thing when you think about the fact that 3 Mile Island is going to come back online just to supply hyperscale data centers for Microsoft. Makes your head pop. It really does. Especially when you think about, I think areas like Northern Virginia are predicted to almost not have enough power in the next few years based upon the amount that their data centers are just consuming and will be consuming. So it's amazing. So it really brings us to the fact that we need every electron we can get, right? And we need to get it from every way of producing that electron. So that's why we're really excited about exploring this all the above approach. When we had our summit back in March, that was the thing that really rang through, was that it is all the above. We are going to need fossil fuels. We need to use them efficiently and cleanly and responsibly, but we also need to bring on renewables and everything like that. So what's your insights around the idea that we need to embrace all sources of energy if we're going to be able to produce enough power for the demand that we expect?
I think it's a really interesting time. And I think that this rapid expansion that is occurring right now, and this rapid need for, or this rapid sort of increased demand for electricity, I hope will spur great innovation. And here's why I say that.
Yeah, please tell me.
We've seen, I think, a shift in policy to leveling the playing field, to saying to any type of energy producer that go out and innovate and create your best product. And for a long time, and for the past, I don't even know, decade, longer, I have to look back, we've said to different kinds of energy producers, we're going to give you this preference or that preference. And I think the thought there was to give a leg up or say, we need to get this sort of industry jump started. If we pull those back and have a level playing field with all of these demands that we have right now,
Yeah,
then we're going to see great innovation. Because before, we may not have really had the base load needs to create and innovate and expand like we do now. But I think that there's a real opportunity for any, industry in that all of the above to really show their chops and innovate. Because at the end of the day, like you said, Jonathan, we need them all.
yeah.
And so what makes this a really great opportunity for West Virginia, for Western Pennsylvania, is that we are very blessed with great natural resources.
100%.
And so I think that coal is going to continue to innovate and see and get a second wind, which I think is positive. I think natural gas, there's no question. I saw the same presentation. By all accounts, it seems that the rapid expansion of natural gas baseload power is going to be essentially required in order to sustain this growth. And then, of course, we'll get to it, I know, and we can talk about nuclear a little later. And then, of course, when you have the renewable generation also in that mix, people are going to want to have a diversified power mix that is feeding these data centers, particularly because they require a lot of redundancy. And I think we'll also see a lot of development and innovation around battery storage as well.
I was going to ask you about that because that's something that that really became apparent to me, that it's not just the production of the power, but it's how you actually store it so you can deploy it when you need it. And that's just a whole other area where innovation is happening. And we use the word innovation here. You got me really excited. You're the first one that brought up the idea that as we face big challenges like this, and then we have this array of energy and sources around us, that's going to create innovation. Human beings like to innovate, right? At the end of the day, if there's a way to make some money and make something better, human beings tend to find that way. So you got me really excited just thinking about the fact that we're going to see some cool stuff we weren't even thinking about, for lack of a better term.
I think about it, it's like it's sitting around the dinner table and there's cake or whatever, and there's only so much cake to eat. And we've got to decide we're going to give this person this much, this person this much, and this person this much. And I think that's government overreaching and deciding who gets what.
Yeah.
But now we're sitting at a table with endless amounts of cake and we're saying, everybody go eat as much cake as you want. That's how you get people moving.
Oh my goodness. And obviously with all the energy that we have here and the way that we want to be able to harness it to power these things, and those regulations around all of this, and regulations are going to have to keep up with the increased demand. I just feel like there's so many more like legal complexities that are going to be coming out of this whole thing as well. There's some key areas that you see most important that we need to be thinking about when it comes to the regulation and keeping things safe and keeping things legal, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, yes, there's no question that speed is going to determine where development occurs. Now, I think we also may have heard in that presentation, and I'm quoting somebody else here, for the first time, we're able to, instead of having to put the power where the data center is, we can take the data center to the power. And that's where, again, West Virginia and Western Pennsylvania have a great opportunity here. But again, this is all going to be determined by speed. And we know that the private industry and business are going to want to go to the place where they can do something the most efficiently and effectively. And so this is really going to be, and I'll start on the state and local level.
Please do.
This is really going to be, this is really going to be a race, for lack of a better term, for how we can figure out how to expedite development. And the number one thing, obviously, that comes to mind is permitting. Whether you're resiting a plant, recommissioning a plant, whether you're building a new plant, whether you're putting in a small generating plant, whatever it is, all of these things, as we know, have to go through a permitting process. And anytime that you hear the word permitting, it's AKA slow. And so I think that there's going to have to be an emphasis, maybe even targeted specifically towards data centers specifically, to find ways to expedite permitting. We did that in West Virginia because I think we recognized the need. And the same goes, it's no different on the federal level. The federal government has really dragged its feet on permitting reform. I don't think government wasn't made to move fast.
Exactly. No, absolutely. Tech moves fast and government moves slow. So it creates the
right. And so hopefully what we'll see, I hope from the federal government, and I think that there's probably bipartisan support for this, is some meaningful permitting reform. Because whether you're permitting pipelines or whether you're permitting new baseload power, all of that stuff has just gotten marred down in the process, and you can't get it through. So I think that is really the biggest hurdle because companies want to move fast.
Yeah, you're literally saying exactly what everyone at the summit and everyone I've been talking to is, that the thing that's going to keep this from working is the speed of government and its reluctance to embrace this. While meanwhile, there are other areas that already have some easier ways of getting their stuff online, and they're going to be kicking our butts, for lack of a better term. And people are like, man, government, please don't screw this up, because this is a great opportunity to create a lot of jobs, create a lot of wealth, and create the needed energy and stuff that we need as a country. So it's, come on, guys, let's do something.
Yeah, no question. And I'll just throw this in there because I
Sure.
about it when you said
Yeah,
it. It's a little bit of a digression, but I think it's important. This is a national security issue. When you look at the
absolutely.
development and the need for these data centers, of course, it's for everybody so they can scroll through their phone and look at their email, but it's to protect the country. And
100%.
we certainly don't want our data stored in an adverse area, and we don't want the power supply to them to be controlled by an adversary either. So that's why we really have to control that right here at home.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, that's so true. I'd love to jump into a little bit on the nuclear side of things, because that I
Yep.
think that's something that solves so many of these problems. And unfortunately, as we all know, nuclear has such a stigma and such a bad reputation. But from what I've been learning, it just seems like the technologies have marched on and improved, and is making this really a viable option when the need is there, and we want to also maintain no emissions. What are some of your thoughts on like a 3 Mile Island coming online, or even down to the mini scale where those micro reactors that I believe that Evinci is trying to put out, where they take it to a place, they set it there for 8 years, it produces power, they come take it away, give you another one, and it's like a little reactor in your office.
Yeah, by all accounts, I think we've sort of learned that projections are showing that the long-term solution, absent a crazy disruption in the meantime, one of the huge long-term solutions is bringing online more nuclear. With the technological advances in micro reactors and small modular reactors, there's great interest there, especially given the level of power that can be generated. The big issues with it are, as you said, legacy reputation. But I think nuclear's kind of had this Apple rebranding moment, like when Apple used to
Nice.
have they had the colored computer, little Apple, and then all of a sudden they went to the black and white sort of Apple. And so I think we're really coming out of that piece of it. But there again, the big issue here with nuclear is getting these things permitted. The runway is so
Right.
long to get anything online. It's something that we've really got to look at. And that's going to obviously come from the federal government. And the other piece of that is these SMRs, particularly, how is the current supply chain going to be able to sustain that growth is a big question as well. And the manufacturing that's required.
Oh yeah, no, that'd be so much. I know there's also concerns like around like the SMRs, that all of a sudden you have potentially hundreds of nuclear reactors that are just existing in the wild. And how will they be regulated? How will their safety be ensured? It's one thing to have a big reactor where there's a lot of control over it. How do you maintain the same levels of safety around the smaller ones and everything like that? But once again, I'm very hopeful the way you say we become innovative in these times. So I'm hoping there's some innovation around that as well too.
I think we'll definitely see that.
Yeah, without a doubt. This has been so good. I'm just really excited about your insights that you're bringing me here. And it's got a couple minutes left, and I want to be respectful of your time and everything. And just really want to look at what's going on with the renewable side of things and bridging over to that. I know that right now the whole point is that using natural gas is this great way to provide the power we need as we develop some of these newer technologies and so forth. Any more insights you might be able to provide me on that neck of the woods?
Yeah, I think again, I think that investment into these developments, it's going to be the return. What is the return on the investment for the investor? And they're going to want, there is no question, zero, that that all of these developers are going to want to have the lowest possible OpEx there is. So they want the lowest operating expense that they can have. And so I think that there will be renewable resources that are probably on site here. There may be companies that frankly prefer that. But I think that the market, I really do believe that the market's going to determine that. And I think that organically, that innovation will allow for some of these renewable sources, again, to grow, to show an ability to sustain and increase perhaps productivity. And if that happens and the operating expense of them is lower than the next thing, then I think you're going to see great.
Makes sense. Yeah, really good stuff. Wow, I really appreciate your insights on this. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you think may be important that you'd like to get out or anything like that?
Again, coming from West Virginia and you're in Pittsburgh, it's one of those things where you say, I grew up playing sports my whole life, and you always heard the sort of the phrase, you're fast, you can jump, you got all the athletic talent in the world, but you don't want to work at it. And it's a shame that we're throwing away all that talent because you don't want to put in the effort.
Yeah.
And I look at what's going on right now, and I don't want to look back. And that's why I work on this every day, in particularly in West Virginia, is that we have all of the talent in the world. We have all of the natural resources. We have the proximity to highly densely populated areas. We have water. We have land that's available. We are that athlete. But if we don't develop it and work hard, we're going to miss out. This is a window.
Exactly. I love it. That's a great parallel. Very cool. Definitely crystallizes the importance of this more. Super rad. I love it. Really appreciate your time on all of this. Thanks again for listening to this TechVibe Deep Dive, exploring data centers and their increasing demand for energy. We couldn't do it without our partner, of course, Comcast Business, to bring you these important conversations about the innovation that's driving resiliency, efficiency, and sustainability across the data center and energy industries. I look forward to seeing you on the next one.